Harry Emmons, my best man. In fact, he was just out to see me just before our anniversary. And well, he lives in Colorado now. But we used to go ride the bus. And I got the bus at the post office, which at that time was at the corner across from the public house. And ride up over Pleasant Hill to Roxbury. And Harry lived on Lamerson Road. And so we used to pick him up. So we used to talk all the way to school and back and whatnot. And a lot of fun and whatnot. But and whatnot. Got to tell you a story about that. When I was a senior, somebody in homeroom did something and ticked the teacher off really bad. And he said, okay, until somebody tells me who did this, whatever it was, nobody goes home. Well, we all rode a bus. And we sat there, and the buses, we could see them from our classroom. We could see the parking lot where the buses were coming in. And we could watch the kids getting in the bus and getting ready to go and whatnot. And there was this cute little trick of a girl sitting in the first row. And she's watching, and her bus was visible. And she knew who the last people would be to get on the bus. It was just before graduation, so the windows were wide open. And we were on the first floor. Lois gets out of her seat, puts her hands on the windowsill, flips her feet up over and out the window, and took off like a scared bunny and got the bus that just as the guy was going to close the door. And with this, it left the teacher, by the name of John Smale, absolutely floored. Well, he says that did it. I guess you all could go. But I've often thought about it. You know, she was a gutsy girl. Because think about that now. She was only not as tall as you are, and she just put her hands on that windowsill, flipped around, out the window, and down the sidewalk and into the bus. Whatnot.
And that was Lois, what was her last name?
Wilcox. Lois Wilcox, but she was from up in Mount Arlington section, because the descending district for Roxbury was big. I mean, it took in Port Mars, Mount Arlington, all of Roxbury, a piece of Mine Hill, Chester, Chester Township, a piece of Flanders, and section of Ironia, not all of Ironia, but a section of Ironia. This all went to Roxbury High School and whatnot back in the 40s, which is when I was at school there. But so I guess that pretty much covered what we did as kids. Oh, well, when we got older, what we used to do, a lot of the Ray, Harry, Tommy, and Jeannie Cowie, and Joyce Gray, and Ray Crew all had farmer license, so they could drive at 16. So they used to get the farm pickup truck, and we used to ride around the back roads and whatnot. And you couldn't do it today. The cops would have you in jail 5 times out of 10, because we, used to get in the back of the truck. They would drive, and so we'd go here, there, and the other place. In the wintertime, one of them would be a designated driver to take us up the hill. We used to go sleigh riding on South Road, and you go down the hill, and then they would bring us, somebody would bring us up in the truck, and then we'd go back down again. And then the other place we sleigh rided was on Pleasant Hill, and that's a real adventure, because if you start at the cemetery and come down, you've got that real sharp turn where Dr. Martin used to live, and then you can go to Rock River. And if you got going good, you could get almost to the river from Pleasant Hill Cemetery, which meant a long walk back up. But most people, when they went around that turn, didn't make it, and they would smash up. But I learned if you took your hands off and put them underneath the carriage of laying on a sled, that you could use your body to get around the turn rather than try to steer around it. And I used to make it pretty much all the way down there, and then say, well, I guess that's good for tonight, because you're not going to have 3 or 4 of these. In fact, Billy, my one classmate there, he had an accident going around that turn, and he ended up with a black spot in his eye that before it went away. The doctor said it's not going to bother it. It'll go away by itself. It was a blood spot. And that was in his eye for probably a year before it finally dissolved. And it was all because the sled there and it hit the ice and hit the sled. But other than that. But then when we got so we could drive legally, we used to get together and whatnot and then go somewheres. And invariably at Delaware Water Gap, there used to be a bear that was there, and they used to say, "Come bounce with the bear." Well, you couldn't really bounce with the bear, but you could go up to the cage and whatnot. And we say, "Well, what are we going to do today?" "Well, maybe we'll go to Delaware. Get in our trucks, cars, drive from Chester to Delaware, visit the bear. Okay, back to Chester." That you spent your afternoon driving back and forth and whatnot. But in those days, it wasn't dangerous because traffic on Route 46 was minimal, at any time. But so that's how we amused ourselves, whatnot.